There's a pretty shot of our studio.
Yeah, perfect song, too.
Yeah.
Heading out the door, got your backpack ready to go to school. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. All right, I want to show you this. This is the new issue that's coming out of People magazine, and it has an article in it about a couple in Alabama who are homeschooling all 10 of their children. You see that?
Check that out.
The interesting part about this, get it, is 6 of them so far were in college by the tender age of 12. That's right. Right now, the oldest is 18. He's already a doctor. Another teen is already an architect, and the others are
this one is the architect right here.
Musically inclined as well. Very interesting topic.
Oh, completely. I think a lot of people have strong opinions about this.
We'll tell you more in a second.
Yeah, we're going to tell you more about that. We decided to chat about homeschooling today, so we invited Silvia Acevedo, former reporter and anchor here at today's TMJ4, because she homeschooled all 3 of her kids. It's great to have you here.
Thanks.
Thank
it's good
you
to be
so
here.
much. Just to kind of set this up a little bit, right now you have 2 daughters and a son, so they're 16.
Right now, she says, because you're planning
well,
on
you're getting rid of them
more.
I was going to give their ages. Right now they're 16, 14, and 12. Right, so you have a junior, a freshman, and an 8th grader, and each one of them was homeschooled about until 7th grade, 5th grade.
The eldest until 7th grade, the middle one till 5th, and then the youngest 4th. He actually skipped a grade, so he went in 4th grade.
Okay, there they are a long time ago. Look at how
yes,
cute they
yeah,
are.
I started just a few years before that. With the eldest one, Corina on the left there, she is probably about 6 there, and I had started when she was about 2.5.
Well, and this is incredible. You started at 2.5, and all of them were reading by the age of 3.
They were reading chapter books by their 3rd birthday, yeah.
Unbelievable.
And I want to stress that I think that many kids are capable of that. I don't think my kids were geniuses, but kids are desperate to want to learn, and if you give them what they want, they will really soar.
See, I love that you said that. You said, you don't think your kids are geniuses, because that's what this family in People magazine, which is coming out next week, says. They say we don't have super genius kids. In fact, she is a former licensed practical nurse, and her husband is a budget analyst, and that's what they do. They just decided that when they talked to their kids about what they were doing in school, saying, what'd you learn today? What'd you do? They felt like the answers were very evident that the kids were not challenged and their time wasn't used efficiently for their child. She does not, however, teach her kids to read until they're 4. And it's interesting because when you think about homeschooling, you think it's all about like how early can they read. And I don't know if that's like a competitive thing against parents, like my kids are out of diaper at this age, my kids can read by this age.
It's definitely a competitive thing. And in fact, I was a little worried about sharing that fact because I thought that it might make people feel bad if their kids aren't reading at that age.
What's typical for a kid?
Oh, well, I cannot speak for my own.
A lot of kids aren't reading chapter books until 3rd or 4th grade.
Right.
Which is what, 6, 7?
6 or 7, right.
Oh, 9
or 10.
9 or 10.
9 or
well,
10.
well, 6 or 7 is 1st or 2nd grade, so
Okay.
But I kind of fell into it a little bit. I'm a victim of my own success is what happened. Is that my brother got me a book on teaching your children to read, and I gave it a shot. I tried it, and so there you go. By the time they were 3 years old, they were reading these books. And then once you open a child's mind like that, they want to keep learning. And so I kept teaching until 10 years later, as it turned out, I was still teaching them.
Did you have any formal training in education? Because Carol Barrowman is a college professor. We asked her to join us today, and she had class, so she couldn't. But one of the things she said is her concern about parents homeschooling when they don't have any formal training in how to teach.
I did not have any formal training. And I do have to say that I think it helps if you have a broad-based education. I think if you know that you're lacking in education, that's something that you need to work on before you get started. But certainly, if you're serious about it, and who goes into homeschooling without being serious about it, you will educate yourself on the different learning styles and the different ways that children learn, and you will be able to go through it. And there are so many different styles of curriculum out there that you can really find things. There's an overabundance of curriculum, so you can find what it is that you need to help each child develop in the best way they can.
Well, what kind of stigmas did you face? Because there's a lot of stigmas out there. I mean, we can't help but point some of them out. You know, a lot of people say, oh, they're not going to be social. They're going to be socially awkward. They're not going to have enough social interactions with kids to learn how to behave in situations, and they're not going to have those interpersonal skills. Do you feel like that was an issue ever?
There were certainly stigmas, and in fact, it's funny that you mentioned the socialization question because that is brought up all the time ad nauseum. And I actually think the socialization socialization question, it actually favors homeschooling because
Really?
there's a lot of negative socialization that happens at school. Let's not kid ourselves. There are bad influences at
Molly
school.
was bringing up bullying today. Like that could be a main reason.
Well, I think
Absolutely.
a lot of parents fall into homeschooling. Some do it by choice, and it's kind of this wonderful thing that kind of grows. But for some, they take it on to take their kids out of that pressure, that bullying situation.
Right. And when my kids first went into school and they came back and we talked about it, they definitely said that they were surprised at the behaviors, the talk, some of the things that were allowed that wouldn't have been allowed in my homeschool. And you know, I expressed the positives. I tried to bring out the positives that yes, but this is how we learn about other cultures and other lifestyles. But I want to be clear that it's not that homeschoolers don't experience other cultures and other lifestyles. They are out and about. They can finish their schooling in enough time that they get out to go do activities. And so I actually think that homeschool kids, because they're not isolated with their age peers all day long, they can actually socialize very well with people of many different ages and
maybe even more so, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Here's the phenomenon that I can't get over, both related to the People magazine article as well as some of the people I know who homeschool. And this is the question that I've got to have answered is, a lot of these kids were in college by the age of 12. The kids I know who are homeschooled are incredibly gifted at school. They speak fluent languages. They have the benefit of a mom who speaks German, who is German. But in other cases, they speak fluent languages. They skip years in math. I know all of your kids skipped a year in math. Why is it that in many cases, and I'm not trying to overgeneralize, that homeschooled children are performing so incredibly well academically? Is the answer simple or is it complicated?
It's really simple. It's that the kids can go at their own pace. So if my kids could prove to me that they understood a concept, prove to me you understand the concept, finish these problems, explain it to me, show me you understand it, fine, we move on, next chapter.
How about
they
if
did
you
not
don't
have
understand
to wait.
something?
Well, I educated myself before I went into it. I didn't go into a lesson not knowing how to do it.
Okay, because I was going to say like calculus or
algebra.
Like, going back to school technically as a parent might be really hard for some parents. I mean,
and, you know, and there are some parents that decide I'm going to teach to a certain point and then I'm going to move on. And in fact, that's one of the questions I get asked a lot is, oh, you must have had a breaking point moment, a moment where you threw in the towel and said, I just can't deal with these kids anymore. No, I always saw value in both homeschooling and institutional learning. And so I had always planned at some point to put my children into school. So.
One of the things that Carol Barrowman said is that as it relates to skipping a grade, that sometimes a kid who does well at, who skips third grade math might not be good at fifth grade math, for example, and that learning is this continuum, and that skipping a grade or going to college at the age of 12, for example, isn't always the best thing. What's your thought about that?
My thought is that we should never hold people back from the successes that they might be able to achieve. I think that if a child can advance a grade, by all means, why hold them back? In fact, when my son, my youngest, went to school in fourth grade.
He's adorable, by the way.
I
saw a picture of him. Yeah.
He actually came back home for a year. After that first year, he said, I'm not being challenged enough. I want more. I liked it more at home.
Even skipping a grade.
Even skipping a grade. So I brought him back home for a year, and then the next year it would have been the start of middle school for him, and there they had more opportunities for more advanced courses, and so he was excited to be able to go into the more challenging classes.
How about for parents who are watching and say they'd like to do that, but what about the respect factor? You know, because as a parent, you think about even like as a mother with daughters, like teaching your daughter how to put on makeup, they don't want to hear it from you. They want to hear it from like somebody else, an etiquette teacher or a cool aunt or what they see in a magazine, you know. So how does the respect factor go? Because I would think, you know, when your kids are in a classroom, they just immediately look up to, and I think of lots of teachers I had who to this day impacted who I am as a person. They're only getting one person. Do you find that any of the respect was an issue, or that they missed out on some of those mentorships?
No, in fact, I think the opposite. I think the respect issue was, I was definitely very well respected when I was homeschooling. And when I took them to school, I noticed that then there was a little bit of, well, what does mom say compared to what the teacher said? And, you know, and I'm okay with that. They need to you know, you're not always going to have people in your life that you're going to agree with, and that's okay. That's part of the learning process.
Well, I give you a lot of credit, because a lot of parents are overwhelmed at the thought of homeschooling and doing all the research and the learning that you had to do to do it.
It's a grand commitment. You can't go into it lightly. And I was very blessed. I had a very supportive husband. I had kids that were excited about it, anxious to do it. If those things are missing, it's more difficult. And so I salute people like this. This woman this family here that has all these kids. It's a great commitment to do it, but it's very possible.
And this family's got a book coming out next May. It's called The Brainy Bunch. So you can find out more about homeschooling there. They've got so many great issues. But they say, too, the key is letting them play, socialize, and finding what their passions are and pushing them that direction. So thanks, Sylvia.
Yeah, I give you a lot of credit. Great to have you here joining us and answering some of those questions.